Hello there all my lovely jewelry makers. So in today's video we're going to be making our own engraved adjustable rings using the Acmer laser. And to help with it we're going to use the Acmer camera for the laser to make it much easier. And now of course I'm going to leave the relevant links in the description box down below. So first you'll find the camera comes with everything you need to get it to work, of course minus the laser that you should already have. And when you first open the box it does look a little weird. You get a couple of sheets of plywood and paper with dots on it and you're kind of like, what the heck is all this for? But it's actually meant for the process of setting the camera up and getting it to work in the first place. And basically calibrate it so it works as intended. So of course, first we put the camera together, which is really easy, and then you attach it to the laser. And this will also fit onto different kinds of lasers. And then from here, you basically connect it to your software. So we use Lightburn for that. And then you work with Lightburn with a camera and these different sheets of plywood and paper and go through the whole process of setting it up and, like I said, getting it calibrated. Now that can be a little bit tricky and fiddly, but once you get the hang of it the first time around, if you ever have to do it again to reset the camera up for instance or recalibrate it, it does get much easier because you've already done it once, so you know what you're doing then. But it is of course an important step because you do want it to be as precise as possible so you get the actual best results you can for your pieces. And there are a few different purposes for this camera. Of course you can actually use it to record the process of the lasering itself. But the actual main purpose is to use the camera to help make the engraving as precise and easy as possible, as opposed to not having the camera where you then kind of have to fiddle around and measure it by eye and make little adjustments, frame it, make an adjustment, frame it, until you feel like you got it right. And even then sometimes you don't quite get it right and then obviously that's really annoying and you kind of wasted a piece. So this is also actually helpful to not waste as much material, because once you got it working it should make it much easier to do the framing and get the professional result that you want. Now once we then got the camera all set up and fully calibrated, I knew straight away what I wanted to do with this and basically test out the camera to see if it works as well as hopefully it will. And that was engrave onto some ring blanks. Now I've had these blanks for a while and I've just kind of been waiting for the right time to use them. So they're completely flat when you get them, so obviously you can engrave into them, but they're also quite small with it being rings, so obviously that's not the biggest piece of jewelry usually. So it can also therefore be harder to frame it and get the engraving exactly where you want it to be and get that professional result. But that's where using the camera should hopefully come in and help with that. So I'd come up with these little star designs where basically the aim is to engrave the stars onto the ring band, and then obviously I'm going to shape them, and then afterwards I'm going to add some gems to them. And I just like the idea of having that all the way around the ring band. So you can both see the engraving but then also that little gem on top that adds a bit of colour and sparkle. I don't think you can ever have too much sparkle. So we basically lined up the ring bands underneath the laser. And then the purpose of the camera is that it takes a picture and then in Lightburn you can see that and then add the engraving that you want on the picture instead of doing it manually with your hands with the laser. So you're basically telling the laser where to engrave through Lightburn through the camera, which should make it much more precise, assuming obviously you've calibrated it properly. And it's just a much easier way to actually frame your engraving onto your pieces. And also for that reason, the pieces don't have to be lined up perfectly straight or anything. They can literally be scattered all the way around and you just place your engraving design onto the image in Lightburn. And it also doesn't have to be the same design that you put on all the pieces in the same image. Again, you would normally have to do them separately if you do it manually. And speaking of which, you also normally would kind of just do one piece at a time, but with the camera, you can do multiple pieces, which obviously saves on time and makes it much more efficient as well. So in this case, we did have two different designs, and I also had a couple of different colors of the ring bands themselves. So like I said, we placed the ring bands, told the laser what to do through Lightburn through the camera, and got it to engrave on them. And it was really quick and easy. And like I said, it just makes it so much more efficient, especially that's a plus as well if you want to run a business with a laser. The more efficient and quick you can make things, obviously the better for the business, but while still of course getting a professional result. So once we were then done engraving onto the ring bands, it was time to of course shape them because you can't really wear them when they're this flat. So I bought this tool to help shape them. Now these are stainless steel and they're pretty thick, so I will say it was pretty difficult to shape them with the tool. There are more professional tools you can get to shape rings and things like that, but because this was the first time I'm just trying it out, I was just using a pair of pliers that are meant to shape the ring bands, and it was pretty tough, but I did manage to do it. And of course, because they are flat to begin with, they also are adjustable, which personally I always think is a plus as I have naturally pretty chubby fingers and I've always struggled with ring sizes. But once I did then get them all shaped, I needed to add my gems as well because I have to get that colour and sparkle in there. So on some of them I added the gems on all the stars all the way along, and some of them just on the ones on the front basically that you would see and not go up against the side of the other fingers of course. And on the silver ones I added these kind of purple blue gems. I just thought that would be nice instead of just a clear AB, just adds a little bit of colour as well and just makes them stand out a bit. And on the rainbow ring bands, I added the clear AB because I thought on those they would stand out the most. And also because the ring band already has all that colour, we don't really need the extra colour from the gems, just the sparkle. So I kind of created my own little tool to add the gems. I just had a toothpick, added a tiny bit of blue tack on one end, and used that to pick them up and then add glue and then place them onto the ring bands. And it actually worked pretty well. And of course I left them to dry for a while until the glue is completely dry and the gems are not going to go anywhere. And I'm really happy with how they turned out. And I think it's really cool that we can make these really professional looking pieces of jewellery but at home by just having a laser. And again then using this camera to just help make it even more professional and also an easier process. So I personally am all for the idea for cameras for lasers. I think it's really handy once you get them set up. So if you maybe have a laser and you're playing with the idea of a camera, I can only highly recommend it. Because once you've calibrated the camera, it really makes everything much easier and quicker. So these were then the pieces that we ended up for this video, and I want to thank Acmer for sending me the camera to try out. And like I mentioned before, I do have a previous video on the Acmer laser. I'm going to link that down below. Spoiler, I also think it's a really good machine. But if you want to check it out, you can obviously do that. And of course you can find links to the camera in the description box down below, so you can go straight to it if you want to check it out for yourself. So thank you very much to Acmer for sending me the camera to try out along with the laser. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.